Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right-doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, even the phrase each other doesn't make sense. Hi everyone, our guest today is John, who takes us on a journey from spiritual crisis to enlightenment. John is a recently retired engineer who attended Bible school as part of the path he walks with God. His spiritual journey has been filled with bumps and bruises, but he comes to a deeper, more meaningful understanding of the meaning of spirituality, and he shares that with us in a beautiful way. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Hey John, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm well, thanks, Freddie. And you?
I'm very well, thank you very much. Thank you so much for coming through this afternoon. I really appreciate it.
Sure.
We seem to have sorted the sound out, so that took us a while.
It did.
John, as you know, this podcast is about spiritual journeys.
Right.
And I've known you now for how long? 2 years?
Probably two.
Around 2 years, yeah. I'll never forget the first time I met you, when you mentioned that you stood in the ministry, am I correct? Or something like that?
Yeah, well, actually what happened was after I finished university, I worked for a year and then I went to Bible college. And after my Bible college experience, which is a 1-year layman's training thing, I asked the church that I was part of if I could join them as a kind of an associate or assistant pastor. And so I spent 2 years after Bible college in the church doing, the usual, ministry.
Okay. And did you grow up religiously?
No, not at all. My parents were not believers in any sense. But at some point while we were still kids, 12, 13, or maybe even younger, my brother and myself met these friends, and they went to Sunday school, and eventually they persuaded us to go along, and so we went along with them, and that's kind of where it started.
How can I put this? Did religion immediately resonate with you? Did you sit in church and heard about Jesus and God and you thought, wow, I like this, I like what I hear? Or was it a slow process of coming to believe?
It was, for me, it was a very slow process. So, I was a child when I went along to Sunday school, and I kind of went along it was interesting, not totally absorbing, but I kind of enjoyed the people and the company and the occasion. So it was more, in those days, it was more about that.
Okay. Did you have a children's Bible, or did you read from the big Bible?
No. So I never had a children's Bible.
Oh no.
No.
We had a children's Bible. I remember it had a picture, a drawn picture, and then a story. So on the one side the picture, on the other side the story, and I used to love the pictures. I mostly read it because I loved the pictures.
Yeah.
So when I grew older, out of the children's Bible, it kind of lost its lure for me.
Oh right. Yeah.
I remember the picture in Daniel in the lion's den. I remember that so well. And the pictures of the angels. I used to stare at the angels for so long. They were so beautifully drawn.
Yeah.
But when I grew up and I loved the children's Bible, I lost my zest for religion as well.
Yeah, no, I never had one of those.
Oh no, we need to get you one.
Yes, start at the beginning.
Connect with your inner child.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so it's quite an interesting one. So, didn't grow up religiously, met religion somewhere in your teens.
Child, sort of, late childhood, early teens.
And there was no girl involved anywhere?
No, not at all.
You would normally hear that, I went because there was this beautiful girl at church.
Oh, yeah, no. These were two friends. The friends we met were both brothers, so there were no girls involved.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is real.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So then you finished school, went to varsity. but did not study religion in any way.
Well, no, just to rewind, I finished school, and at that time there was compulsory citizen force.
Oh my God, military
service.
Yeah.
So I went to the Navy for a year, and which was interesting. Yeah.
Especially for somebody from England.
Yeah.
Could you swim?
Yeah. So that was down in the Cape, and I grew up in Joburg. So it was quite interesting to come down to the Cape and to experience the Cape, which was great. But yeah, so I spent a year in the Navy, and after a year in the Navy, I then started at varsity.
Okay. And while being in the Navy, did you attend church services and by biblical practices and all those type of things?
Okay, so what happened to me, to rewind a bit, while I was in high school, I continued attending church, Sunday school, and then the youth group and so on. And I did get to a point where I actually really made a commitment to Christ, and became a Christian at some point. Got baptized and so on, and then it became much more meaningful to me, and was very meaningful in my high school years. My faith, and so I had that grounding before I went into the Navy. But in the Navy, I drifted away quite a lot, although I would attend the church service. But in those days, attending the church service was about the girls, because of course
girls did come in somewhere.
Yeah.
I thought so.
We didn't see girls, of course, normally, except when you were allowed to go to church, when you could see girls. But no, so that was very infrequent, though. Yeah.
And did you go with your white Navy?
Yeah.
What do they call it? Step-outs?
Yeah, our ice cream suit. Yeah.
So the girls possibly went to church to see the boys in the ice cream suits as well. So it was a mutual thing.
Right. Yeah. So, but I did drift away from my faith quite a bit. I didn't ever abort the faith, but I did kind of drift away. I sort of backslid, in other words.
Okay. And then you went to varsity, back in Johannesburg.
Yeah, then I went to varsity. And on varsity, when I went to varsity, I actually made a real beeline to go and connect with the Christian groups on campus.
Okay.
And that was actually quite good. I enjoyed that.
And did you keep on attending the church of your childhood?
Yes, yeah. Okay. So I stayed with that, yeah.
And how did your parents react to you embracing something that they didn't really introduce you to, or did they endorse it?
Yes, they did. In fact, the extreme irony is that after we started attending Sunday school, as my brother and myself, as children with these other friends of ours, and had been doing so for a year or so, we got tired of it. And at that point, my dad, who is sort of an old school disciplinarian and totally non-Christian, non-religious, non-spiritual, insisted that we should go because we've got to continue. And he actually took us on Sunday mornings to church, to Sunday school, which is like an extreme irony.
That is quite weird. Cool. And left varsity with quite a solid professional qualification.
So I did a BSc electronics or engineering, and immediately after leaving varsity, I got a job, and I still lived at home at that point. And I actually saved up enough money in that year, because I was living at home, to buy a car, a brand new car, the price was 2,200 Rand.
What car was
it? It was a Datsun 1200 GX.
Okay.
Yeah, really cool car. So I saved up enough to buy a car and to put myself through Bible college the following year, which I really wanted to do.
That's amazing. 2,000 rand. You can't even have your car serviced for 2,000 rand at the moment.
No.
Okay. And then you made the commitment to go to Bible college. Was the idea to commit to a new career, or what was your thinking at that stage?
So my thinking was I'd worked for a year, and I realized that if I continued working from that point on, I would never go and do what I really wanted to do, which was to go to Bible college, because I really wanted to go. It was a layman's training institute, not geared towards people who want to go into ministry or be a pastor or a priest or anything. And it was a fantastic experience that year at Bible college. I really was personally stretched and developed a lot. And I found that extremely valuable. So then after that year at Bible college, went back into engineering.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, sorry, I went to work for the church for a couple of years, and then went back into engineering.
Did you at any stage think that you won't go back to engineering?
No. That was always in my mind. This was always going to be a short-term thing that I needed to do, wanted to do.
So how old were you then? 24, 25?
Yeah,
around then?
Yeah. 25-ish.
Okay.
Yeah.
And went back into a professional career.
Yeah.
So at some stage the girl must enter the fray.
Yes, so I actually met my wife-to-be at Bible college.
Was she studying there as well?
Yeah,
okay.
She was also there. And we got married a year after that. Yeah.
Okay. Still living at home?
Yes, I stayed at home. Well, actually, what happened was when I told my dad that I was going to go to Bible college. This is now when I was still staying at home and working for that first year of working. When I told him I was going to go to Bible college the following year, he actually told me to pack my bags and leave. So he actually kicked me out the house at that point because he was absolutely infuriated that I would, in his mind, throw away my career and so on for the sake of going to Bible college. So he showed his true colors at that point.
Did he pay for your studies?
Yes, he did, but actually it wasn't him, it was his mother who was paying because it was an inheritance that he used, a trust. I think it was a trust.
Okay. So it wasn't as if he felt, I put you through college, you will use your qualification.
Well, there was some of that. Yeah.
One of my favorite things is Bill Cosby always used to say that his father said, I brought you into this world, I'll take you out again. So it was kind of that attitude.
Yeah. No, it was a bit like that.
Okay.
It was a bit like that.
So how did you feel at that stage? Did you feel God's testing you, that he's forsaking you, that he's putting a barrier between you and him, or I mean that's kind of weird.
Yeah, no, I just saw that as pure spiritual opposition, because and I just sensed a really hostile spiritual force, if that's the right word, from him. So just antagonistic and angry and irrational. So I wrote it off. I wasn't disappointed with God. I was disappointed with him.
Okay. And you didn't contemplate not doing it?
No, not at all.
So your conviction was very strong. This is what you're going to do.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. It was a great year.
Okay. So met wife also in Bible college. So there were no kind of spiritual challenges involved there?
No.
Cool.
No. Yeah, it was pretty straightforward. Both on the same wavelength.
Awesome. I suppose that makes the beginning of a relationship or the beginning of a marriage much easier.
Oh yeah, I mean it removes one of the obstacles, I guess.
One of the fundamental things.
Same values.
And she was also from an English family in Johannesburg.
Yes, so similar culture, heritage, background, language, and faith.
Yeah, and her parents also in the church?
No, her parents were probably similar to mine. Her mom was quite spiritual, and probably was a Christian at that point. but low profile, and her dad was definitely not.
Okay.
Yeah.
And during the course of your life, because we are now talking about what, good 40 years down the line,
Yeah.
did you go through phases of moving out of the church, moving back, or going through spiritual, what shall we call it, existential crises? Or were you constantly involved, constantly as committed as you were at that stage in your life?
I remained pretty much constantly committed from that point onwards for a long time, until really such time as I hit the crisis of my addiction. And it's at that point where things started to change. But until then, it was constant.
It's interesting what they say is the minute addiction enters, that relationship that we have with God gets severed. It's as if the two can't go together. The one is going to find a what's the word I'm looking for? Prevalence. Is that the right? The prevalence over the other.
Yeah.
Is that the right word?
Dominance or something. Yeah. In my case, when the addiction reared its head in my life, which was quite late in life, the turmoil it caused for me was trying to rationalize being a Christian with all of the promises that go, and expectations is the better word that goes with that. In other words, one expects to be delivered, to be set free as a Christian. When one cries out to God about something or asks Him for something. And the big disillusionment for me was that even though I prayed multiple hundreds of prayers and had many prayers prayed for me, that the addiction did not leave me. And I couldn't understand that because of the expectations I'd been taught or led to believe about my faith.
Did you feel forsaken?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That must have been difficult.
Very.
It must have been really, really, that's really what we call a spiritual, what's the word, Malay?
Yeah, I don't know what the word is myself, but
something like that.
But yeah, no, it was very disillusioning, very despairing. Couldn't understand it, but I didn't give up straight away. I mean, I kept asking and trying multiple times, but the disillusionment just slowly grew.
You said you didn't give up right away. Did you give up at some stage?
There was a point in time where I kind of did give up. Or yeah, I think I could say I did actually give up.
So addiction won, basically.
Yeah, and I just came to the conclusion that faith is not what it's cracked up to be, and it doesn't deliver.
That must have been incredibly difficult for you.
Yeah, that was very difficult to come to that conclusion. And then, of course, you start doubting lots of other elements of your faith as well, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, but if it's anything like me, I can make any small crisis an existential one. So I would really have kind of gone all out and made it a huge, huge issue.
Yeah.
Where did your wife stand at this stage? Was she still very committed religiously and all those type of things? Could she understand, comprehend what you were going through?
Yes. So in the early stages of my addiction, after some time, I actually confided in her, and she was very supportive at that stage.
That's okay.
And she kind of suggested possibilities for me to get help, and I went and sought many avenues for help. But there were many cul-de-sacs, if that's the right word, dead ends in that search for meaning and to try and understand what this addiction's all about and why I can't get rid of it.
And was part of that searching for meaning and everything, was that also going to speak to preachers and ministers and those type of things.
Yes, yeah. So I went through a long sort of bumpy ride in trying to find help. So I went to a pastor who ran a group of guys for about 8 to 10 weeks. I tried various online courses. I think it's called Covenant Eyes is the one that is.
So it's religious based.
Yeah, religious based. These were all religious, but there were numerous religious based avenues that I explored. Had numerous people praying for me who were in the church, ministers. Then I even tried going the secular route. I went to see psychiatrists, psychologists. Psychologists practice where they do therapy for addictions, all of which didn't reap any long-term benefits.
And while this is all happening, your spiritual connection with God is diminishing.
Yeah, it's going through this dichotomy or this schizophrenic thing, where on the one hand you're trying to believe, and on the other hand your rational mind tells you that there's no substance for this belief because you're not being delivered or healed. So there was this inner conflict that went on for a long time. It was only much later where I actually began to understand the mechanism or what the real root, what God's role is in deliverance. And that was a turning point for me, because I realized at one point, and this is the most significant thing about what I've said, is that God does not just instantaneously deliver or heal a person, I should talk about me, from this kind of thing. I suppose that would include other things too, addiction certainly being one of them, sexual addiction. But God is not absent. He is present, and He is still leading and guiding, even though it's hard to believe, but in retrospect I can see it. And He wanted to get me to the point where I understood that there were a number of experiences that I had to go through in finding healing, where I would have to visit myself and deal with a lot of other issues that were this kind of the foundation of the addiction. So God didn't come in and just remove the addiction. Rather, He took me through a process, which I'm still going through now, whereby I have to go and visit my character defects, a whole range of issues that are the platform for this addiction. Because the addiction is just a manifestation of these aberrations, which can come out in various ways, one of which is sexual addiction. So God's plan with this kind of thing is not to just instantaneously wave a wand and heal you, because He would leave all of that foundation of distorted character undealt with.
So God is not a fairy.
Right.
Exactly. If you expect fairy behavior, read a book.
Yeah.
It's not. This is not where it's going to happen. Yeah. Basically.
So that was it was a huge frustration for a long time to try and understand awful. Why this God, who is supposedly so merciful and so caring and so kind and so compassionate and so powerful, especially so powerful, did not deliver me from this addiction. And I eventually came to realize that to deliver me from this addiction would just be to put a band-aid on cancer. The real issue is deeper and has to be dealt with.
That's fantastic. What I've found often is that our intellect stands in the way of our belief, if you can put it that way. I meet a lot of people who truly believe that if they can understand, if they can conceptualize, then they can heal. Instead of And in a way, that's what I'm hearing from you. It sounded as if you kind of, you had to go on a journey away from the intellect. Or no, you went on an intellectual journey, trying to understand, trying to gain knowledge of various things in order to get healed. And at the end of quite a long and very intense journey, the message that came to you was, knowledge from the outside is not going to do this for you. Connect with you. Learn to understand, and I think in a way, learn to love you first.
Yes. Yeah.
So this is an inside job.
Yeah. Because addiction is based on some kind of distortion in one's personality. Typically, I think in many cases, but certainly in mine, arising from your early days as a child and the kind of relationship you had with your parents. And the distortion that arises in your character and your worldview and your perception of things remains there and will come out in one way or another. In some people it never comes out in addiction, but might come out in many other ways. And until such time as you understand that you have this distorted, defective personality that needs to be dealt with, you won't ever get past that point. And going through that process is painful and difficult, because in facing yourself, you've got to deal with stuff that is shameful, that is awful, that is almost too awful to contemplate. But in that painful route, that painful process, eventually you come out a much better, if not fully healed person.
One hears a lot that it's being said we need to travel from the head to the heart. Is that something you're experiencing?
Yeah, I think that is true. Yeah, so to try and understand the workings of this thing from a strictly theological perspective didn't really help me at all. And
has your crisis, your existential spiritual crisis, been resolved?
Yes. So,
awesome. Yes.
So I'm now in a place where, now that I understand that it was necessary and is necessary for God to take me on a very painful and difficult route, which I'm still going through, once I understood that, I could then understand something of His love and His care, because He's much more concerned with dealing with the root than with the superficial issue. And I've also seen how He has led and guided me, even though through lots of bumpy roads and dead ends, I can nevertheless see a thread of His guidance and care leading up to this very, very present day. So my relationship with God today is a whole lot better.
Awesome.
I'm connecting with Him regularly every day, and really enjoying the experience, but also seeing it quite differently from the way that I used to see it. I can't even describe how, but it's a different kind of relationship almost.
Fantastic. What do you ask God for?
Yeah, so typically these days, instead of asking God for things, and certainly not for deliverance from this, I do, but I mean, I understand that I need to ask Him more for the courage and the patience to go through the route that leads to deliverance, rather than for deliverance itself. So, because the route to deliverance is a long and painful one, and difficult, with lots of highlights along the way as well. But so that's the kind of thing that I ask God for. In other words, typically I would ask God, let me know what Your will is for me to do today, or what is Your will in connection with X, Y, and Z today. Help me to do that today.
Instead of saying, God, I want this, I want that, I want that.
Yeah.
So that's a huge kind of different way of looking at the thing. You nearly took the coin and flipped it on the other side and said, okay, fine. Instead of asking for what I want, I'm going to ask God I'm going to ask God to guide me to what His will is for me.
Yes.
That's a complete different way of looking at it. And John, how do you listen to God?
Well, I mean, typically I'll spend some time in the morning meditating, reading a bit of scripture, meditating, and reading some of the helpful material that SAA and others provide for this particular addiction. And I find that really gets me going on the right wavelength through the day. And then I must admit that once I get to work, I tend to just focus on work completely, and any thoughts of God disappear out my head, which is wrong, but I'm slowly learning to involve Him in the day, and especially when temptation comes along.
Okay. So what I'm hearing from you is, in terms of spiritual practices type of thing, you do readings, you meditate, you pray.
I attend church.
You attend church,
which I lapsed out of for a long time.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Mm.
And any other things? Spending time in nature, helping other people. What type of?
Yeah, up to now I've been employed and worked. So my day's been my week, in fact, office hours at work. But I'm wanting to explore more and more ways now that I'm not working in the same way.
Freshly retired, by the way. As I say freshly, as in really freshly. So this is a whole new journey starting.
Yeah. So it certainly presents opportunities to help others. Freddie has recently persuaded me to sponsor another guy under threat of murder. No, he didn't. So I am looking for ways of giving back.
That's fantastic. It's really, what I really like to hear is that you've gone on a journey, and you might have lost faith at stages, but it sounds as if you clung on, and that it is starting to pay off again.
Yes.
And that's such a message of hope.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
It really is. Instead of people walking away and being lost.
Yeah.
That's really, really nice. John, are you happy?
Yes, I'd say I am. I mean, I'm still struggling with addiction, of course. I'm still on the road. But in general, I'm in a much happier place than I was 2, 3, 4 years ago, or back in full-blown addictive behavior, where I was terribly, terribly unhappy all the time. Now I'm in a much better place.
What does happiness mean for you?
It's really just a sense of peace and well-being. Yeah, more than having anything, or it's really just that.
And was that always the case, or is this also kind of a newish type of insight?
No, this is newish. Yeah, okay. This is newish. Yeah, definitely.
So it's not what you have; it's how you feel inside.
Definitely, and it's got to do with a number of things. How you relating to God, how you are relating to people. That can really affect your peace or non-peace. Yeah, so I'm in a much better place.
I know for myself that the one thing that I can honestly, my happiness has come from, and you said it, peace. And the peace has nothing to do with world peace, everything but there's a sense of serenity in my head. That chaos that was in my head before we came on any form of spiritual path.
Yes.
That has gone, number one, and the fact that I feel I'm on a path.
Yes.
I think my path is for other people quite questionable, if you want to call that. But it doesn't matter, because I know I'm on a path.
Yes.
And for me, from somewhere that was all over the bloody place, doesn't matter which direction the wind blew, I went there.
Yes.
Now I've got some form of anchor.
Yes.
And that really gives me a lot of peace. Gives me a lot of hope.
Yeah. And the thing is that where I am at the moment is that I'm on a journey of discovering who I really am. What I find exciting and challenging and also scary at the moment is that I'm actually in a process now of beginning to understand who I really was intended to be, and who I really am at my core. because my core has been so corrupted by and distorted by events in my childhood, etc., which gave rise to this whole addictive behavior in presenting a false front. So I'm beginning to understand why I lack confidence so much. And all of these defects in character, I'm beginning to go back to the root and to identify them in such a way that I can begin to discover who God really wanted me to be.
Wow.
So that's where spirituality comes in. This is very much a spiritual thing, because I'm now finally discovering who God wanted me to be so that I can be that person.
Fantastic. John, if you can, for anybody who is going through any form of spiritual difficulty, questioning their path that they're on, what advice can you give? What would you recommend?
Wow. I suppose it depends on the circumstances that they're in and so on. There may be some circumstances that they need to change or need to take cognizance of. But the bottom line is to understand that there is a God who cares. And if there's a God who cares, then he is watching over you and is able to change your circumstances and your situation. If not your circumstances, then certainly the way you're seeing them. So one has to just really hang on to the belief that God loves one, that God loves us and cares for us. Because coming out of that, one will eventually discover a much better place.
I suddenly got this weird picture in my head of, what do you call that thing in maths? Where it's got a...
Oh, the compass.
Is it a compass? It's got a sharp point that you stick and then you draw a circle.
Yeah, that's called a compass.
Is that a compass?
Yeah.
So it's nearly like the picture that I see from you is where the sharp thing goes into the paper, that's God. So keep that solid. Keep the sharp thing in the paper.
Yes, yes.
And feel free to move in a circle around it in search of, and keep on moving forward, keep on changing. Because one thing that I've learned is that if nothing changes, nothing changes.
Yes.
We can't be in a bad situation, start questioning stuff but not willing to change anything. Sometimes we need to change the question.
Yes, yeah. And I think that leads straight into the prayer that we know so well, the Serenity Prayer.
Yeah.
Because that prayer in a nutshell encapsulates so much. Grant me the serenity to accept what I cannot change. Those are the circumstances that you might be in. You can't change them. You have no control over them. Sometimes you do, in which case you can do something. But, grant me the courage to do what I can. That's the scariest part of that prayer. Because there are things that you can do, and they are typically things that involve you facing yourself and your stuff, which is much scarier than facing an enemy. I've had this sort of thought often that men will far rather sit in a trench and face the enemy at 200 meters and get up out of that trench and charge than actually face the scary stuff inside their lives, which is far, far scarier.
Yeah. Rather jump out of the trench than go inwards. Yeah. That's fantastic. John, I got a lot of our chat. Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate you coming to talk to us, and I wish you all of the best on this journey. It sounds as if not only are you now being given the gift of time, but also at the same moment when you say I'm going on this journey, God is giving you the time to go on this journey. How fantastic is that?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's been great, and I've actually enjoyed the chat too, because it's helped me to kind of crystallize some of my own thoughts as well, which is good. But yes, I'm excited about what lies ahead.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Enjoy
Freddie.
your afternoon.
Thanks. Bye now.
I really enjoyed listening to John's journey of hope. If I got anything out of it, it is the message that one should never give up on what you truly love and believe in. He has faced some significant challenges on this path, but persevered in what he believes the right thing for him is, and he seemed to have grown through it all. I'm grateful for this time we have spent together and know that I shall be able to use his experience, strength and hope in my life moving forward. Well guys, this is it for this episode. Hope you enjoyed it and got something out of it. If you want to know more about what I do, please feel free to connect with me on my website, which is www.freddie.org.za, or find me on Facebook at www.facebook.com/freddie.org.za/ or on Twitter at @RensburgFreddie. Remember that Freddie is always spelled with an IE at the end. Be safe. Bye.